Welcome back, everybody. In this video, I'm going to be pressing the barrel into the trunnion. So now that I'm actually all done with the build entirely, you can see here by the completed finished rifle, I've learned a couple things. So I want to share that with you before we begin here. So the first thing I learned is that the Cetme L is a very different beast than any other H&K firearm or the Cetme C. So standard bolt gap on those guns is between 4 and 20 thou. On the Cetme L, all that goes out the window. The Spanish engineers that decided to design their own roller lock gun after the Germans had left and went off to Germany to make H&K, they decided to make their own version of a roller lock gun without really any clue what they were doing. So the bolt gap values for the H&K guns aren't really valid with the Cetme L. So with that in mind, what I actually did when I made the video, because again, this thing is all done, is I went with the old values between 4 and 20. I think my gap ended up being like a 17 or so, and it finally settled in around probably about a 12 thou. And the gun actually does work. So I don't think it's wrong per se, but if I were to do this again, the barrel is flanged. So what I would do if I had to do this again is press the barrel all the way to the flange and then check bolt gap there. As long as you have a bolt gap, so as long as the carrier is not slammed all the way against the bolt, these things should run. So it's actually kind of a little easier than doing a normal H&K because you really don't have to make sure it's set to a certain value. As long as it's above a 0 and probably below about a 12, I'd say. I think the 12 is like where people say it's the maximum of what it should be. It should run, it shouldn't have any issues. So with that in mind, if I were to do this again, just press the barrel and all the way to the flange. As long as you have something there that's less than 12, maybe 15 even, it should be all set. So with that in mind, I know there's some keyboard warriors out there that are gonna skip this part because I'm just talking and go straight to the actual video of me doing it. And I think I pressed to like 17. It actually finally settles in at like 12. They're probably gonna comment in saying, oh my gosh, you did it all wrong. Yeah, I know, I'll admit that first. I probably did it wrong. So just set it, push the barrel all the way to the flange. As long as you got something, you should be good to go. But I can tell you that this completed rifle does work. Works great. There's a whole bunch of witchcraft with roller locks I don't quite understand. You can read up on it on the internet and you'll figure out what happens when there's too small of a bolt gap, when there's too large of a bolt gap. But I can tell you my gun runs fine. So with that, let's get into the pressing process. So the next step I think we should do is setting the bolt gap. So pressing the barrel into the trunnion. I did sandblast this because I did have some kind of yucky stuff growing in there. Put a really light coating of anti-seize on there and go ahead and figure out how we want to set this thing up in the press here. All right, so just for the initial push, got some random piece of aluminum. Remember for the C, we'll end up using the bolt. We're close, but use the bolt now. Oh yeah, we're close. Yeah, we got a long way to go from there. Too long, but you know. Okay, we'll get the bolt, see where we are. Okay, we got quite a big gap left here. Got a 28 thou feeler gauge. Gap should be about 20 on the high side. So go ahead and try to close on a 28. Let's tighten the 28 there. Good job. Something smaller than that. Don't have a 20. Still rebound, lower 20. Knock it down to 16 thou. 20 still loose too. So the problem is this extension on the bolt here is not straight in line with the bore. So I'm kind of cocking it off to the side, I think. Let's go down to 13. You just want to start pinching it. We'll take on 20. Okay. We'll stick with 15, pinch it a little harder. It's definitely closing off, I can feel it. 20. Okay. 18. Stay on 18. Go down 16. Won't go on 20. So I'd say we're probably about a 17 thou for a bolt cap. Nice. And it's all relative, because this thing does walk just a little bit, so I'm trying to push down as even as I can. So 16 goes in, 18 barely goes in, 15, lots of space. So yeah, we're somewhere around 17, 16 thou, which is perfect, I'd say. Good. Okay, so that is set now. So I like to pin the barrel pins now, especially if I'm on the high end of bolt gap. So what I've got is a 5mm AK trigger pin, really. So that's pretty much hardened. This hole is less than 5mm, so I'm confident that this should be tight. So what I have is a number 11, so 191, 191 thou. This measures 194. So drill bits really drill a little bigger than they should, so we'll probably end up being right about good for tolerance. Okay, it wasn't very smooth because this trunnion is hard and my drill bits suck, but I ended up using a 3/16 end mill to do the starting hole, and then a number 10 bit with that 5mm pin. And nice and tight, good press fit. Awesome. Moving on.